bum out, please be a nice little cushion there.
When you make a movie, it's a huge logistical enterprise, and it's tough, and creatively, logistically, technically. And so going into that experience with people you respect and admire, but who also can take the strain of it with some real dignity and some real humor is essential. And that's the qualities I've found in many of the people I work with in front of the camera and behind the camera. So if I look back over those 7 films, it's a very fond memory of the many wonderfully creative people I've worked with across all of them. And that sense of family, we use that word quite a bit, but it's important because that doesn't always happen in our industry because it's a tough business. And when we come together to make something, it's always, I think, more interesting than working apart making something, so to speak. And I think what's enduring about these movies, I think they become a safe place to go to for lots of people. They celebrate certain values: loyalty, love, friendship, empowering the outsider, the person you always underestimate, things that, you know, resonate for a lot of people out in the real world. And they do it in this magical space.
One of the joys that David really allowed me to investigate was, rather than feeling the weight of the brilliant performances by Michael Gambon and Richard Harris, was to really go back and understand that he's not the fully formed Dumbledore of the Harry Potter books and films. He's a man still finding his way, still confronting and resolving his demons. And that's what I mean by regression, I suppose, that in this film in particular, he's facing the past, he's facing himself and his own guilt. But if there were a quality that links him, I would say it's his mischievousness, his humor, and his belief in people, his belief. He sees the positive. You think how Dumbledore believed in Draco, he believed even in Tom Riddle. You know, he sees the good, or the potential good. And I think that's something that he's always had.
What I love about Newt is fundamentally he's an introverted guy and is most comfortable with his creatures and in his own world. But Dumbledore has seen a quality in him that has the potential for leadership, albeit in an unconventional way. And this film, what I love about this movie, it's like a wizarding heist movie in which this group of outsiders all band together with all of us are unconventional, all of us, and the leader is unconventional, and there's a kind of wonder in that. As far as working with Jude's concerned, I adore this man. He was a friend before we started working together, and one of the real joys about working on a series of films is you get to push things. You get to feel so comfortable working with each other that you can kind of push boundaries, I suppose, and also there's a kind of shorthand, so that was kind of joyful in this.
One of the exciting things, certainly for the audience and certainly for us filmmakers, is being able to open up the magical world and to go to completely new areas, which gave us hugely interesting, creative, new environments to reproduce. I mean, I'm not sure which countries I'm allowed to say, but we start off in China, in the forest, and that's a very different area for us to go to. We then spend quite a lot of time in Germany. We see the German Ministry of Magic, which we've obviously in the past seen New York, we've seen the UK, and it's nice to open up and just see a completely new ministry. And then at the end, we end up in Bhutan. Again, a completely new, different area. And then we do go back, as you said, to familiar places. We go back to Hogwarts quite a lot, and we go back to Hogsmeade. And I think that for us, as who've been on this journey for a while, is exciting to go back and see those places again, and be familiar with those places from all the previous films.
For this character, he's very, very linked to Dumbledore. And for me and Jude, we had quite a few conversations about what that relationship looked like. So my character is shaped out of that world. But I mean, you don't start out saying, nobody actually in history started out saying, I'm going to be the bad guy, right? So we have to figure out what his mission is. what's his goal? Why is he trying to make the world a better place in that matter? You know, so I think that they started up having a common and a mutual goal as young adults or big children, and then it got blurry. The ways of getting to that goal were different than they imagined.
I felt like I'd been in preparation subconsciously from the minute I started reading the books to my children. And gosh, there's just so much in the character to mine and to investigate as an actor. And that's before you even get into this extraordinary world of magic. That's just him as a human. But the magic's really fun too. I remember Eddie telling me that on the second film, the first film for me, where he talked about, you know, if there's a situation or a problem with a scene, or, you know, you remember you've got magic at your disposal. And the scene in Berlin, when I had to basically pass on information to the team, went from being a scene where I was basically passing over maps to a scene with a magic hat and all sorts of things flying out. And that, again, that was the excuse of, well, yeah, it's magic, so I can do that.
One of the amazing things about David Yates, our director, is that even though the script is there and it's incredibly the technical creating of that script is a big technical feat, he would allow us as actors the freedoms to improvise, to come up with new ideas, to change things or modulate things on the day. And so, as Jude says, one often does that on film sets, but when you get to incorporate magic into that as well, or creatures, and getting to say, well, what if the creatures did this, and we had we could play with that, and that for me has been some of the most fun. And you know, a lot of these actors here, I'm useless at improvising, but they're brilliant at it. And so watching Dan or, you know, Jessica improvise and add just extra layers was really wonderful.
I started reading those books in the third grade, and a lot of the books hadn't come out yet. And so I grew up knowing it just for more time than I've been alive. And to be, you know, just in the Great Hall and seeing, I think that was amazing. And then seeing the kids in their robes, their wizarding uniforms, actually was like the most, like, I could cry. Like, I wanted to, you know, the sensation of wanting to squeeze something cute. I wanted to squeeze a lot of the kids and just shake them, which means that it was cute. And I just got, I was like, I want to squeeze a kid. And so but then I realized I was an actor, as a liability, as a lot of, you know. So I didn't squeeze the kids, but the sensation was there. And basically I got chills, and there was a lot of times where I had to go back and forth in this movie between just totally nerding out and just being like, I cannot believe I'm here. Could I tell myself in the third grade that one day I would get to play this witch? I wouldn't even have believed it back then. And then the other part was like, oh, right, I need to know my lines and make sure, because I'm accountable to this big production that I got inserted in. But it was totally a pinch me moment, and it was really surreal. And the kids in the robes really it just took me back to Sorcerer's Stone vibes, or Philosopher's Stone vibes, if you will, since we're in the UK.
With this movie in particular, our previous episode was quite complicated plot-wise for all of us. And it took us a while to figure that one out. And so with this story in particular, we wanted it not only to be emotional, but we wanted it to be enjoyable, and for it to be a real treat, and for it to lean into the values of some of the earlier Potter films that had whimsy and charm, humor and humanity. We showed it to a little audience a few weeks ago, and there was this very young man in the audience. I won't name him, but he was a kid. And everyone turned to him when the lights went up and said, "What do you think?" You know, because he's one of our first audience members, other than the people here who have seen it. And he looked at me and he said, "I liked it, it's really human." And I thought, we'll take that. We've made a film with all this extraordinary stuff in it, and the one thing he takes away from it, it's really human. And that's a testament to the performances and the story and everything. It's really human. Let's have that in the world we're living in at the moment.